Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sounds Like Sam. I'm your host, Sam. Man, it's been a while. Thank you for joining me today on this podcast episode. Let's just call it start of season 5. That was me clapping. Okay, well, anyways, it's really good to be back. I know it's been a while. Basically, my idea moving forward is that I'm going to make actually different podcasts. So, Sounds Like Sam is going to be more of almost a channel instead of just like a podcast. I've said before that I really wanted to explore different areas and niches that I'm very interested in, and obviously I talk most about fantasy football, so I want to make a podcast about fantasy football, solely about fantasy football, but also put it on my Sounds Like Sam account. Pretty sure I'm going with the fantasy football podcast, and it's going to be called the Bullseye Fantasy Football Podcast. That's right. Bringing back Bullseye Fantasy Football. If you don't know, I've had a channel on Instagram. I've had a Twitter account. It's probably about time that I actually make it into a podcast, because I think it'll just bring more people to it, and it'll be just an easier way to listen, and you won't have to be like listening to weird episodes on Sounds Like Sam if you don't want to. So essentially you can follow along on Sounds Like Sam, or you can also, if you just want to hear my fantasy football content, you'll go to my Bullseye Fantasy Football Podcast account or page or whatever. So that's the idea. And I'm still coming up with the names for the other ones, but Bullseye Fantasy Football Podcast is, I think, a hit, and that's happening. So, just a fair warning, I guess. Hopefully that explanation kind of helps. Anyways, moving on. Since this is going to be basically my first dual episode, where I will eventually post this as my first Bullseye Fantasy Football Podcast episode, along with my first Sounds Like Sam episode of the season, I wanted to talk about some news that happened around the football world, as well as fantasy stock prices that are players who are rising and falling. I was going to talk about a little bit of the running back payment controversy and my thoughts about that, and then some other things that I think are interesting. So, also, if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, the background is of my closets. So, first news, I think one of the biggest headlines, I think, of just football in general has to be DeAndre Hopkins is signing with the Tennessee Titans. And I feel like the fantasy football community has had a field day with this. I know it probably happened like a week ago. So I'm not like right on the button with it, but I feel like a lot of these professional fantasy football hosts or whatever are really just pulling the plug on the DeAndre Hopkins train, which I think is a horrible idea if you are into fantasy football and you're looking for a guy who's reliable, who's a number one guy who really has had a good career in the NFL and has worked with some really good quarterbacks and some really bad quarterbacks, and I think for a lot of people, they're skeptical about what Tennessee Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill will be able to accomplish with DeAndre Hopkins, and I personally don't think it's going to be an issue. In fact, I think for DeAndre, besides the money aspect, I think some of the things he was looking for, besides money, would be a decent quarterback, a team where he's going to be the number one go-to guy, and a chance for him to, start over, be on a team that I think has a possibility of a future in terms of, having a good team. I don't know if it's this year for the Titans themselves, but for DeAndre Hopkins in terms of fantasy, I believe his stock has actually dropped to a lot of people, and I think this is an opportunity for you to buy him because, like I've kind of said, I like the fact that he's actually with Ryan Tannehill. Him and A.J. Brown had a great connection, and that's what's kind of skyrocketed him. I think he's just going to make all the wide receiver room a lot better. Hopefully Treylon Burks can learn under DeAndre and his veteran presence. People have said that, Julio was on the team and Robert Woods and those veteran, decent wide receivers came to the Titans and had found no success. But then there's also guys, like Corey Davis, who really flowered under the Titans. And I believe if he didn't have such a big payment coming in, if he would have stayed, he would have been doing a lot better than he has done on the Jets. And I think for the Titans moving forward, even though it's maybe not going to be Ryan Tannehill, they grabbed that Kentucky quarterback, Will Levis, who I think is actually going to be one of the better quarterbacks from this rookie class. I don't think he's going to start or anything unless something crazy happens and Tannehill gets injured, but I think the dynamic of, they're obviously running Derrick Henry is going to run the show because it's his team, but with, I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a great go-to guy for people. I don't know, he might not get, over 100 receptions, but I think he could have 90, and I think at this current position on ESPN, he's ranked wide receiver 22. I think he can. I think that's easily convertible to a top 10, to him being a top 10 wide receiver. So I think that's a steal, or at least a possible steal. I spent a lot of time on that, but I still think he's at the top of his game, and I think he proved it last year when he was out because of PUD suspension for 9 games. He played the last 9 games and was totally elite. So I don't think he's gonna have a problem. I think if anybody says in your league that they're sleeping on him, you should be looking at him and drafting him. Let's see. Other news: Dalvin Cook doesn't have a place right now. It looks like teams that are interested are Miami, the Patriots, and the Jets. If I had a best location, it'd probably be Miami. I mean, they still have Raheem Mostert and they have another guy, but I don't want him to. It could be an interesting pair up if it was Dalvin Cook and Ramondre Stevenson. I think that would be an interesting dynamic. I don't know if I'd love it though for fantasy. He could be what LeGarrette Blount was for that one year where he was just a touchdown guy and scored 20 touchdowns. But and then I don't know that I want him on the Jets either, because even though he'd be a great matchup with Breece Hall, I'd rather Breece Hall run the show, and I just don't know if that's a great fit. Although I think it's going to be a really good team, I don't see that being a good fantasy place for him. But in terms of fantasy draft ability, he is really low right now. According to ESPN's current PPR rankings, he's the 27th running back, which he could easily be a top 10 player if he's drafted to the right place. Yeah, that's my take on that. Other news, okay, here's one. The Nyheim Hines news. He was, he is the Bills running back that they traded for last season with the Colts. So he was supposed to come in, kind of be their receiving threat, a possible, punt or kick returner. He had that ability. He's a pass catching running back, and it was injured on a ski accident, and he's basically he's out for the season. And so, should professional athletes be allowed to do these outdoor activities? That sounds like ridiculous now, but when you think about it, like, he basically, by getting himself injured in a skiing accident, he's now damaged goods. I wouldn't be surprised if, the Bills maybe let him go. Maybe they could bring him back, but it's like, what's the point? Like, this is a pretty serious injury if he's out for a full season. And when you're an athlete, when you're a professional athlete, and your whole job and your livelihood is dependent on you playing in games, and you're out for the season, it's like, do you really want to take that risk by going and skiing? In my opinion, they should. The teams should have a strict policy of, like, your only job is to stay, like, practice. You can practice, you can do this, but and you can practice, you can be at home, you can go to restaurants, but what you can't do anything outside of football or training. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like no jet skiing, no skiing, no basketball. There's a reason why Myles Garrett, the Browns were telling Myles Garrett to stop playing basketball and stop dunking, is because, like, he'd get injured. I rightfully agree. They're paying them millions of dollars, and they don't want them to go to waste based off of an outside injury. Plus, when you're a pro athlete too and you're getting paid millions of dollars, when you can retire, like, literally at 35 years old if you save your money right, you, like, then 35 and up, then that's the time to go do all those things, to go skiing, go, surfing, or I don't really know what other things people, like, football players really do activity-wise, but just, like, don't do anything that's going to risk or jeopardize your career. And that's all you have to do, and you only have to do it for, like, 10 years. And then that's why I think it's important to like, preach financial awareness and making good decisions with money, and that it's a good thing for, like, I don't know if NFL teams do it, but it'd be a good thing to invest in, because even though, going kind of back to fantasy football, Nyheim Hines' stock has now totally decreased, even though it wasn't, like, that good to begin with, in my opinion. James Cook's value has now skyrocketed because Nyheim Hines is in there. James Cook is going to be the main pass catcher for the Bills. Devin Singletary is in there. Basically, it's James Cook's team, and I know they have, he's a Patriots running back, Damian Harris, who I actually do like a lot. But I think James Cook is going to be more utilized than Damian Harris will. So Damian Harris will probably be more like a goal line back. James is going to be like pass catching, going to do it all kind of guy. Fantasy wise, it's a factor to pick him, especially in PPR leagues. I guess I could talk a little bit about the running back payment controversy and my opinions about it. The payment controversy really started when, in particular, Austin Eckler was really unhappy with the way that the running back landscape has worked out, where, teams just don't want to pay these big name running backs long-term contracts because they're running backs and they can find it's easy. It's been easier for teams to find rookie running backs who are cheaper, and then to pay veterans a lot of money. And if I decide with one group over the other, I would definitely sign with the organization, because the business strategy, it makes sense right now. Why would you, yes, some for a guy like Austin Eckler, he has played a vital role to the team, and he's been a really good player for them. They could probably find another guy just as good, who's going to be just as good, like in a year or two, who's young, who's still on a rookie contract, or pay $20 million a year for Austin Eckler, where that money could go somewhere else. So business-wise, I think it makes sense. I think running back-wise and investing-wise, it's better to invest in the rookies. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that they shouldn't be paid big money. I think, guys like Derrick Henry obviously should be paid because he's literally the face of their franchise right now. And he's like that's the thing that they build their team around, is around him. He's also a little bit of a different breed, I'd say. I mean, he's just a huge, I think he's like 6'3", maybe 6'4", 250 pounds. When you build a team around him, it's a little bit easier to front a little bit more money at him. But I think the solution, now this is going to sound really dumb, but the solution to this running back problem for long-term deals is going to be that, one, running backs are going to have to, and the go-to running backs are in particular, are going to have to show the owners that they can't win without them. And to do that, they have to play in a few games, like 3 games, and just ball out those 3 games. And then once they've established that, they're there, then they just all just not fade away, but they protest. They don't play in the game. And they say, sign me to a long-term contract. That sounds so stupid, but it was one of my ideas that, they all have to band together and basically show their teams that if you want to win right now, you need me. And I'm not going to play until you sign me to a long-term contract. It's basically like blackmailing, kind of. Because unless they have, another guy, I think that's, the only problem is they have, a rookie or something behind him who's doing, just as good, then that's not what you want. But if they don't have a guy, then that's going to, move the ball forward for them money-wise and deal-wise. But the only other thing they could do is, and that I think would make more sense, but at the same time, I don't think it would work out either, because my other idea was that all the running backs who are in rookie deals or undrafted free agents, they need to demand more money up front, because they have to know that the name of the game, running backs don't last as long as other positional players and just are not as valuable because they are kind of replaceable. So we want more money up front, and that could kind of change the. Because that's the other thing too. If you think about it, is if the running back position is becoming, or if the running back position gets to the point where they have to start take the better rookies, people are going to go after them more. That's when they're going to start demanding more money up front, because they know that as rookies, if that makes, I don't know if that makes any sense, but basically, even though they don't value them down the road for long-term deals, the organizations are going to start wanting them more for their rookie contract, so they'd be willing to take running backs higher than they would have in the past, because it's now more valuable to find a running back. Teams are going to want to go for him more. But I would say it's a little bit harder to I don't know. Okay, well, those are just my 2 ideas for that. Kind of went off tangent, but yeah, running backs across the league, they're really sourcing their frustration with the pay gap, and basically, I think guys like Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell ruined the long-term deals because they basically showed that they weren't able to fulfill their obligations on the field enough. So I kind of think it starts with them. I think my other thing related to football was going to be kind of a stupid take, is that I think the NFL should start featuring players' nicknames on their jerseys. I think it'd be really funny to see, but it'd be interesting to see what what the players' nicknames are on the team, or if they have one or not. And I think it could be a good selling point for at least fanatics to have a one. And I wouldn't say it would be for the season, but what the Heat versus the Nets did in 2014, where they had LeBron James, and Kyrie, I think Kyrie, and just other players, they just had their nicknames on the back of their jersey. I just think it'd be cool to do it for a game, to see what other players would be called. And yeah, fantasy stocks. Here's the segment. I'm going to tell you a player, and then I'm going to give you their rising or falling, and then if I'm buying or selling. So here we go. Fantasy stocks, starting off with DeAndre Hopkins. I think right now he is falling, but I think he is a buy. Make that official. Running back James Cook, talked about him also. I think his stock is rising with Nyheim Hines going injured for the year and Devin Singletary not being there. I think PPR wise he's a buy, considering where he's at, especially if you're going wide receiver heavy in the beginning. He's a good guy to target, around 5 or 4 or 5, depending on how many players are in your league. Next, Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow actually was carted off the field today with a possible minor sprain that might fall his draft stock a little bit, although right now his draft stock is very high considering, so I'd still buy though. I mean, if I could get him in the 4th or 5th round, I think I'd do that. And I think he's going to be totally healthy, so that was a little bit weird, but if that makes sense, on the season he was higher, but this might drop him a little bit lower. But I don't think it's really going to affect him, so I think he's still buy. Next, Calvin Ridley. I think he's come back from a season-long suspension from gambling. Been watching videos on him. His stock is rising, but it's not too bad. He's not really considered top 10 right now. He's considered wide receiver 27, and I think that is a steal because I think Jaguars have an elite offense right now, and you're going to want him on your team. He's going to come in. I think he's going to replace Christian Kirk as the number 1 wide receiver, and he's going to be a go-to guy for Trevor Lawrence. So I like him. He's a buy. Brandon Cooks going to the Dallas Cowboys. They need some wide receiver talent, and I like Brandon Cooks, but to me, he hasn't shown enough recently for me to really want him, and I think I like other guys better than him that are around him, so he's a sell for me. Alvin Kamara is actually right above him in terms of ESPN PPR rankings, and right now he has fallen to running back 29, which is what he was last year. He did not have a good year, but I think he has a chance of recovery under Derek Carr. I think Josh Jacobs had a really good year with him. I know he might be suspended for the first 6 games, but I think he's comeback season for Alvin Kamara, and throwing the pass behind him with the stuff that was going on with him, I think he's a good buy for PPR leagues, especially again with if you're going wide receiver heavy, he's going to be a guy to target. Bijan Robinson, rookie from Texas, going on the Falcons. He's projected as, I believe, running back 3. He's the running back 3 right now for fantasy football. That's a little bit too high for me for a rookie. And I don't know. I don't trust rookies as much anymore. I know he's going to be a starter, but, is he really going to be the next Saquon Barkley? I mean, maybe, but, to me, I'd rather take Tyreek Hill. I'd rather take Derrick Henry. I'd rather take Saquon Barkley. I'd rather take Devontae Adams than Bijan Robinson. Nothing against them. I just would rather go with someone who I know is more reliable, who's less risky. Cole Kmet, he's a buy for me. His draft stock is down. He's ranked the number 12 tight end, and he's like overall like he's number 102 on the ESPN's PPR top 300 list. He's, for some reason, that seems really low for him. And but at the end of the season with Justin Fields, I thought he had something going, some chemistry going. So if you're in a PPR league and you're looking for a tight end late, I think he is a great tight end to target. So he's a buy for me. Najee Harris, I think his stock price has been lowered. He's running back 14, but I think with the offense that the offensive line and the offensive weapons the Steelers have built around Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris has been 1,000. I think he had 1,200 yards rushing. I don't think he did great as a receiver, but he didn't do like horrible. I think this is a great opportunity for him to really step up and rise to be a top 5 running back. He's going to get a lot more opportunities to score, and he didn't really have that last season. I think he's going to be I wouldn't be surprised if he's over 1,500 yards, over 15 touchdowns, over 45 receptions. So I really like him this year. He's a buy for me. And then Alexander Mattison, he's taken over as Dalvin Cook's running back. So his draft stock value has really risen. Used to be just a bench backup player you'd get. Now he's full-fledged first rounder. He really the situation really reminds me of kind of like I don't know if you remember D'Angelo Williams when I think Le'Veon Bell was out for like 6 games. I mean, not really similar to that because Bell came back that year and killed it, whereas Alexander Mattison is just taking over the running back 1 spot. I don't love him as a player. I don't think he's going to be better than Dalvin Cook, but I think it's again with if you're going like wide receiver heavy, he's definitely a good option to look for because I think he could be scoring you like 15 points a game, which is really good. I love their offense that they have going on with Justin Jefferson. They have Hawkinson. They have a rookie another rookie wide receiver. Kirk Cousins has been doing pretty okay. I think it's a good position for him, so I'd say he's a buy for me as well. So that's really the conclusion of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, go subscribe to my podcast, Sounds Like Sam, wherever you find your podcasts, and make sure you also subscribe to Bullseye Fantasy Football Podcast, this is going to be the first episode for that as well. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to message me on Bullseye Fantasy on Twitter. I believe it's called X now, but I don't really know. Or you can email or message me on Instagram as well at Sounds Like Sam podcast. I can't remember, but whatever. Well, thanks for listening. All right, peace.